Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. And Zach is on the road. He's hit the road and he's scouting minor league players. Is that what you're doing? Did I get that right, Zach?
Is that what it looks like? I'm in
Yeah,
some
you're about
small
to go see a
town
baseball game in like Provo, Utah, potentially.
there's like some future superstar hiding out in the woods back here, I think.
That's right. It's like the movie. Did you ever see the movie Blue Chips with Shaq? And well, anyway, to find Shaq. He wasn't Shaq in the movie. I can't remember his Neon Badeau was his name in the movie. And to find him, Nick Nolte, who played the coach, had to like go to the bayou in Louisiana. He had to get on a boat. He had to walk through the woods. And then finally he saw this 7-foot giant playing basketball in some little gym in the middle of nowhere. And that you're doing the baseball equivalent. You're Nick Nolte and you're looking for your Shaquille O'Neal.
I feel like that's kind of the Jim Thome story because he was in the middle of nowhere, Peoria,
Right.
Illinois, and like chopping wood. And next thing you know, he's hitting his 600th home run.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like you're not going to have stories like that anymore because no matter how small the town is, now everybody's so connected via the internet. You got your mixtapes or whatever, and everybody gets found now, I think.
But that makes it so if you do find someone in a remote area like this,
That's true.
it's even more special.
That's true. All right, so Zach's outside. It may be the first ever episode of this show where somebody was outside, I believe. I think that's a record. That's a first. In baseball, we keep a lot of stats, so we got to keep track of that too. So
I just hope it doesn't rain.
Yeah, it's been raining overnight here, and I know you're not that far away. We won't say where you are because we don't want everybody to stalk you down by where you're staying, but you're not that far away. So anyway, we'll see. We'll hope for the best for your weather. Have a nice vacation this weekend, and the Guardians are going to play the Brewers this weekend. We'll get to that in a little bit, but let's look back when we were last on Monday. I said that I was rooting for the Guardians against my Cubs, because I felt like it's the Guardian. It could be the Guardians' year. It's definitely not the Cubs' year. And, the impressive series for the Guardians, that wild game on Monday that was really back and forth. Tuesday nail biter, and then they take care of business on Wednesday, putting it away late. A couple of, amongst the things we saw this week was Emmanuel Clase becoming the first Guardians player to record saves 4 days in a row since Mesa. I can't remember what year it was, but obviously it was a long time ago.
I think 95.
Yeah. So a long time ago. And it was a really good series. And I know the Cubs may be mediocre, but they were playing great baseball coming into that series. They had won 8 of 10. And, the Guardians won kind of 3 different ways. It was a real impressive 3-game streak. And now it becomes a 5-game winning streak heading into Milwaukee. What are your thoughts coming off this series, Zach?
We'll talk about my thoughts and all of Bull's thoughts and how he manifested a sweep next on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.
Thank you. It was a real pro move, Zach. I completely forgot about hitting the intro, and you were on top of it. That's a good job out of you.
That was an impressive sweep because even Stephen Vogt admitted that while they were trying not to put too much stock into the Twins series, it just felt like it was dramatic, or important.
Mm-hmm.
And so you come home and I don't know, there's certainly an opportunity for a letdown, or you're tired, you're dragging. So it was, especially to get that first game, that would have been quite a crushing blow. And the way they had leaned on that bullpen, then to be able to, Wednesday get one good outing out of Sandlin when you needed it, to be able to get, you squeeze the most out of Clase that you could. They just, and then obviously when we can talk more about the 2 veteran starters who gave you a huge lift. So just everything working the way you want it to. The bats came back. And I mean, you mentioned the Cubs, and it's like, you look at the schedule, there's not a lot of chances to catch your breath. And even though the Cubs had played well, I do think a team kind of around that 500 mark in your building, we said it both, like that's a series you have to win. So to sweep, that was really impressive.
No doubt. And you referenced the veteran pitchers. When I was doing the recap of that, the one thing I didn't mention was, as you alluded to there, The Guardians didn't have either of their top starters in the sweep after they had both done a great job against Minnesota to wrap up that series. And Ben Lively had a second straight, not great start, so we'll keep an eye on him. But you have Matthew Boyd, and we've talked a lot about how the guy's never really been that good, but he's a veteran, he's a journeyman.
He showed us.
And man, he was fantastic. We'll get to Cobb in a second, but and I thought he was going to get through 6. Obviously, they were pretty strict on that pitch count. They must have had that number right at 80. But you really, the guy's making his first start in over a year, his first start for you as a franchise, and he could not have pitched any better than he did in that game. He was sensational.
It's such an interesting story because this is really a trial for him to land a free agent deal this winter and to set up basically the rest of his career. And he has repeated over the last week or so that he believes the best baseball of his career is ahead of him. So we'll see if that's true or not. But you think about the difference between him being invited to spring training and it's just like hey, you're coming back from injury and, come fight for a spot in our rotation and you don't have much power. Versus he pitches well for the next 6 weeks and it's like, hey, here's a 2-year, $25 million deal.
Right.
That's a big difference. So it's important for him. I think that's probably why he landed in Cleveland anyway, because you trust their pitching staff, their gurus or wizards who take people like him and turn him into something really productive. And for the Guardians, obviously, like they needed starting pitching help. It seemed like a perfect union. It's just you didn't know what this guy had left.
Right.
And it's not like it's been that long. He had surgery at the end of June 2023.
Yeah.
And the Guardians actually slow played this. Like he felt like he was where he wanted to be physically, I think a few weeks ago. The Guardians knew it too. They just didn't want to rush him back. So for him to look that good that soon, like I don't know if that's how it's going to look every time, but they always say the last thing to come back when you have elbow surgery is your command, and he needs command to be good. He's not throwing 97.
Right.
But it looked sensational the other night, so it's really impressive, and we'll see where it goes from here.
The way he was striking guys out, it looked like he was throwing harder than he actually was. It was like deceptively fast. I don't know. And it makes you think to some degree, well, because he dominated in the minors on his rehab, and you're like, well, he just continued to do what he does. And it's one start. You don't want to get carried away. But again, it's very promising. We'll see what he does this next time around. And then, Alex Cobb followed it up. His first start, he left him in too long, probably. Didn't pitch great. But he also fell one short of completing 6 innings, 1 out short of completing 6 innings. And he followed up Boyd's start with one of his own that was really good. So, and he, I think you feel a little better about him because he wasn't out as long and he's had more success in the majors than Matthew Boyd has. But,
his thing was a hip. So,
right.
It's not as much with the arm. I know he had some like nerve issues in his shoulder, but yeah, I'm with you there. Like Boyd is to me felt like a complete unknown.
Yeah.
And Cobb I would trust a little more. But
yeah,
who knows now? It's better than Carrasco and Cantillo, right?
No doubt, 100%. And I was asking you the question before the show, and you thought a while about it, but I don't think you were ready to give an answer yet. So we'll see if you are now. Are you more confident in this rotation right now? And obviously, couldn't be less of a sample size for 2 of the guys in there than you have been at any time since Bieber got hurt.
It's an interesting question because I think your first instinct is to just say yes. But there's a lot of factors here, like the Gavin Williams arc where, and in April, we had no idea when he was going to be back. We thought it was going to be late April or May. Right. And then he had a setback, and next thing you know, he's not pitching until I think the end of June or early July. And then there's also the Ben Lively factor. In April, I had no idea what that guy was going to be. Looking at his track record, I didn't expect much. And then it took a while to finally believe in him and trust that he was going to give you a good start every 5 days. And now I think, he might be on fumes. He might be the least trustworthy member of the rotation. So the answer to me is yes, but it's a little more nuanced than I would have thought, just because I think Gavin Williams being back and looking really sharp his last time out makes that a little easier to answer.
Yeah.
Um, but it's crazy when you think about, we always say, like, if you would have said this team was gonna have the best record in baseball in mid-August, which is the fact, you would have assumed, oh well, Bieber must be looking like old Bieber, and
Yeah.
Tristan McKenzie is healthy and performing well, and Bobby Williams and Allen took another step in year 2, and that's just not what it's been at all.
Nope. No,
Um,
couldn't be further from that. Really.
yeah, so it's crazy to think of how many iterations of this rotation we've seen. It feels like McKenzie hasn't been up here in months,
Right.
and Ben Lively took a while to get on that bandwagon, and we saw Carrasco, we saw Cantillo, we saw Curry for a minute. It's Logan Allen. It finally feels settled, and like they've raised the floor. I
Yeah.
expect Boyd and Cobb to avoid the Carrasco Cantillo like 3 1/3, 4
Right.
run type starts.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I am more confident in this rotation. But yes, it feels like there's a part of me just kind of convincing myself of that, whether it's fair or not. Um, I think I think if we see, especially if we see Gavin Williams tonight and he goes against Savale, our old buddy,
How about that?
um, I think if he follows up his best start of the year with another one, because he's been inconsistent, obviously, since he's come off the injured list, I'd like to see him put together a few good starts because ultimately he and Bybee the two most important starters. Yes, it's important to have Cobb and Lively and Boyd, give you 6 innings and pitch solidly, and you're going to need at least 2 of those guys in the playoffs. But if you're going to win at the highest level, if you're going to win when it matters, it's going to be because, amongst other things, that Bybee and Williams are pitching at a high level, because they're the two that are capable of that in this rotation. So I'd like to see him go out there against a real feisty Milwaukee team that everybody, myself included, thought was going to stink this year
Mm-hmm.
when they traded away Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff is out for the year and they lost their manager, Craig Counsell. And now they're the best team in the National League Central, and they've consistently played well. So, and then you're on the road here. So if Gavin Williams goes out and pitches really well against Milwaukee, and that's a good hitter's park too, my confidence level is really gonna bubble up even higher.
I think that like Boyd and Cobb are probably more important for the regular season, helping you
Yeah,
survive, get to the finish line. Because it was gonna be hard to do when you had at least 2/5 of your rotation that you were just praying would get through 4 innings,
right.
and that's not the case now. I think Bybee and Williams, on the other hand, are more important for the playoffs. You need those guys to go toe to toe with Garrett Cole, with Corbin Burns, with pick your Mariners starting pitcher out of a hat,
Right. Yeah,
Kirby, Gilbert. So those guys are going to help you. Like they got to be your ace. They got to step up on the big stage
yeah,
when it matters most. You'll lean on Cobb or Boyd for a playoff start if you advance far enough. And those guys will be important, but they're critical to just make sure you're not destroying your bullpen, to make sure you're
right.
not asking the offense to come up with 7 runs every time they pitch. So it makes life easier. I mean, look at the ways they won a 9-8 crazy game on
Yep,
Monday, and then they came back and won a 2-1 game the next night. So that's a good sign. They can win different types of games, depending on what sort of pitching they get, what sort of offense they get. That's important, and that should benefit them moving forward, because it's great that Clase was able to save games up 4 days in a row, but no manager wants to wants that to be an option, I
No,
think.
no, no. And it's good that he gets at least 2 days off in a row here. Maybe hopefully they win by blowout, give him a third straight day off. We'll see. But he's probably dying to get right back out there and pitch again.
They avoided the conversation for day 5. Clase spent it. They forced him to stay in the dugout during the game and wouldn't let him go to the bullpen. But he
Oh,
was,
yeah, he probably wanted to go,
oh
right?
yeah, he was itching to get out there.
Yeah, it was a good thing they get those 2 extra runs off of him, with Jimenez's double in the 9th to kind of, or bottom of the 8th to, now there's not that they were thinking about it anyway, obviously, but that's 6-1. You're feeling okay. We're not going to blow this lead. Speaking of Clase, there's been a lot of fans here locally that think he should be the Cy Young winner. And I love Clase. I mean, what can I say? What can you say about this guy that hasn't been said? He's been absolutely phenomenal. Me personally, I can't think of a scenario where I would ever vote for a closer for Cy Young, just because I get it. You say his ERA is, but I look at Tarek Skubal, who's got a 2.50 ERA, and he's pitched 140 innings. He'll probably finish with 180 innings, whatever it is on the season. I just can't. It's not to me. No matter how good the closer is, unless there's no starter having a great season, I would consider it. And I think Clase will get more votes than a closer's gotten in a long time. But ultimately, I can't see him winning. Can you?
No, Zach Britton in 2016 had an 0.54 ERA,
Right.
and I think a better strikeout rate than Clase has got. If people look at, if they want to consider that in their voting process, he finished 4th, and that year Rick Porcello won, and he went 22-4, but got a ton of run support. His ERA was like 3.15.
Yeah, that was a weird year.
Didn't have great strikeout total. Actually, Verlander finished 2nd, probably should have won it.
Yep.
And that to me screamed, if Britton can't win it this year, I don't think it's going to happen anymore. There have only been 3 relievers who have ever won the Cy Young, and it was Mike Marshall back like 50 years ago, and he threw a ton of innings. Eckersley in 92 won it. It's really interesting. I think he threw like 80 innings, and he actually won MVP that year too. And he even said like 5 or 6 years ago, like, yeah, the other guys should have won it that year. Like, I'm not giving this award back, but just based on what we know now about like the impact a certain pitcher has based on your innings and your performance, like he even knows, yeah, there are other guys who are more deserving who threw 250 innings. And then Eric Gagne won it in 2003, and his numbers are insane. Like 82 innings, 137 strikeouts, a 1.20 ERA. And that year, like I think Jason Schmidt had a pretty good year, like a 2.50 ERA, kind of like what Skubal's done this year.
Yeah.
But that was 20 years ago. So for Clase to have any shot, like I don't think he can allow a run the rest of the season.
No, probably not.
Because you got to have an ERA that's just jarring to look at.
Right.
So if it's like 0.46 or something, like maybe he gets consideration. But I think you're right. Like Skubal, I will say, like the field's not great. George Kirby gave up 11 runs the other night, which probably eliminates him from consideration. I think Seth Lugo got hit around pretty good his last time out.
I think he could finish as high as 3rd. I think Skubal and Corbin Burns probably finish, and listen, they could get blown up the rest of the season too.
But then my question is, if you're a voter, why does Clase finish ahead of Cole Reagans but not Corbin Burns? Like, what is it that like the reliever fits in perfectly here?
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. It's a fair point because they're pitching 3 times the innings or more.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard enough to compare because they do such different things. But then if you're going to say that Clase is more deserving than these starters, but not these couple of starters, I just don't follow the logic, I guess. I don't know.
No, listen, I mean, I know the relievers. What is the reliever award called again?
Is it still
Fireman of the Year? Rolaids relief. I don't know. But listen, they got their own award. It's, I understand. For all our fans who will say that Clase should win, to me, you're being biased because if, let's say, Tanner Bybee had the same numbers that Tarek Skubal has, and the Tigers closer had the same numbers that Clase has, nobody would be saying that Tanner Bybee shouldn't win the Cy Young. So it takes nothing away from Clase, but being, what Scooble's done is harder to do.
I will say, I don't know how I would. I'm glad I don't have a Cy Young vote this year.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, and Scooble's been awesome. I don't know, some vote. Every voter has different criteria. The
Right.
Tigers stink,
That's fair.
right? And
That's
you could
fair.
build the narrative that the Guardians are where they are, and the biggest reason is the bullpen, and he is the anchor in that bullpen, and has been automatic.
Yes.
So you could build a narrative where if you vote Clase this year, especially if Scooble winds up with like a 3 ERA, I I can't slam you if you vote him.
Absolutely not. If Scooble and Burns, if they falter at all down the stretch, and Clase, like you said, let's say he's perfect, doesn't give up a run the rest of the year, doesn't blow a save the rest of the year, there will definitely be a case. And like I said, I think he's got the best case that anybody's had in a long time.
Yeah.
I
And also, just
it,
the
go ahead.
guy's incredible. I mean,
Incredible.
he's 2 saves away from tying Cody Allen for the franchise record. He's 26 years old.
I know.
I mean, what is that going to look like at the end of his Cleveland tenure? I mean, he might have like 150 saves on the number 2 guy.
We've looked at, you always bring up the bad contracts.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about, like Miles Straw in that awful situation. Emmanuel Clase's contract, I haven't looked at it in a while. I'm going to bring it up right now. So Emmanuel Clase, do you know it offhand, Zach? I got it.
I think
Do you know how?
Is he making 2.9 million this year?
2.9 million this year. Next year he'll be making 4.9 million. In 2026 he'll make 6.4 million. And then in 27 and 28, his age 29 and 30 seasons, the Guardians have $10 million team options those years with a $2 million buyout. So from their perspective, it's really an $8 million contract, even though they're paying him 10. So unless he, and you never know with closers because they could fall off a cliff quickly and things change. But unless something weird happens with him, I mean, you got him locked up. The next 4 years combined, you're paying him a little over 31 million. I mean, if he were on the market, he'd be getting 20 million a year. I mean, I know closers don't get as much as other guys, but still.
I mean, Josh Hader just got 5 for 95.
Yeah, he'd get more than that.
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz the year before got about, I think, 100 mil, I want to say.
Yeah, and he got like 5 for right around there.
Yeah. So I mean, he'd get a 5-year, especially at his age. I mean, he'd get 5 years overall. He's the best closer in baseball. There's no argument. So I mean, he is crazy underpaid right now.
Yeah, there's no one to compare him to either. I remember talking to people, and I know Jason Lloyd was talking to some people when they made the trade, and we were all scratching our heads like, you flipped Kluber for a reliever, a relief prospect,
right?
And Delino DeShields Jr. and we knew the stuff. Like everybody knew he had this 100-mile-an-hour cutter, and it's super intriguing. We didn't know Kluber was only going to throw 1 inning the next season. We didn't know the pandemic would wipe out 100 games in the season, and it would wind up being an incredible trade. But the only name people could think of to compare Clase to was Mariano Rivera. And everyone who says that would say, look, don't judge me for making this comparison.
Yeah.
There's just who else and I know Clase throws a slider. He's only thrown it like 20% of the time this year, but it's basically who else throws one pitch over and over. Yeah. You know it's coming and you can't do anything with it. And that doesn't mean you're going to swing and miss every time. And Clase's strikeout rate is fine, but it's because you can't make good contact with it. He's given up 1 home run this season. It was to Jake Berger in like a 5-run game in Miami in June.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's just incredible that, and if you look at the numbers, like, and I don't want to compare, Rivera was a first ballot Hall of Famer, unanimous selection, and was the best closer in the game for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But there's no one else to compare him to. And at
No,
least to this point in his career, like it's insane what he's able to do and do it efficiently. He can throw 4 nights in a row because he only needs like 8 pitches to get through an inning.
I know. And what is so bizarre, first of all, his strikeout rate this year is the lowest of his career. You'd think the guy's having the most dominant season. He's been a great player, but he's having his best season. You would think as a closer having your best season, you have your best strikeout rate, but he's not. I mean, he's averaging less than 8 strikeouts per inning.
But look at the walk rate.
Oh yeah, it's just it's
And that's
crazy.
why he's
He's
throwing
averaging 1.1 walks per 9 innings,
I
which
think
is the best of his career.
7 walks all season. And it's because he's not abandoned the slider, but he's being more selective with it. So he's just throwing the cutter over and over again, and he can place that exactly where he wants. So he's throwing more strikes. And guys know he's going to be in the strike zone. That's why the strikeout rate is not as high because they're always swinging. You can't make good contact on it.
He's only given up 9 hits in I'm sorry, not 9 hits, 9 runs, 30 hits in 56 innings, which is, I was like 9, that's crazy.
And
But
how many of
30,
those are like broken bat bloops
yeah.
or infield choppers?
You know what's funny is it felt like he gave up a lot of home runs last year. He only gave up 4 home runs last year. It felt like a lot. I guess for him it is. That was the most he ever gave up in a season.
That's his coaches always say that like the big thing with him is he's in great shape and he always wants to pitch, and he said he went really hard on whatever his training regimen was over the winter to make sure that he would never get tired. And you can tell that he learned some things from last season and he wasn't satisfied with it. He's changed the pitch usage. They were begging for him to throw more cutters up in the zone last year, thinking, how do you hit 101 at the chest?
Yeah.
Like it's impossible. So he's done everything.
Yeah.
And the season he's having is incredible. It's got some Jose Mason 95 vibes. Just he was automatic that year too. So and you think about getting to the playoffs and having him, you've got enough off days so he can pitch every game.
Yeah.
And he could go more than an inning if you need him to. Get 5 outs.
No doubt. And he's intimidating on the mound. I believe that. I don't think there's a lot of guys that are, but he's one of them. Quick break. Folks, let me talk to you about Game Time, the Game Time app. If you're looking for tickets when the Guardians come back home, you're looking for tickets for football, for concerts. We got Billy Joel coming to town next month. Whatever you're looking for, check out the Game Time app. I know I have a friend who got Bruce Springsteen tickets for very cheap. It was the day before the concert. If you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. There you go. All right. Let's get some questions, comments from the fans. Derek says, looks like Arias may be on his way back. Who gets sent down? Freeman, Schneeman, Rocchio. Arias coming back?
I don't know. I saw he was scratched from the lineup in AAA yesterday. He's been putting up good numbers in Columbus. I don't know if that'll. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not interested. You know who I want up, even though he hasn't been playing particularly well lately, is Kyle Manzardo.
To face Aaron Savali. We all need that, right?
Yes, that would be good, but it doesn't appear to that it's going to happen. 2 weeks, the rosters expand to 28, so we'll have 2 extra guys up here. But Corey says, sorry, joining late. Have you heard of any claims the Guardians have made in waivers? No, not as of early this morning. Nothing yet.
It'll be interesting, too, to see if any team does what the Angels did last year. Just dump all their
put everybody on waivers. Yeah. The Rockies kind of did that with Elias Diaz, and his name was connected to the Guardians at the deadline. I don't think
I never understood that.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. But Brett asks, why does this show not end up in the Apple podcast feed? I don't know, Brett. I'll have to try to figure that out. I'll talk to Mikey McNuggets. Mike says the next 2 series are going to be another big test. I mean, listen, they don't have many non-tests. I think the the next team they're playing that's not that good is probably Pittsburgh right at the end of the month. So, I mean, they're in a stretch of games here. You got Milwaukee, the Yankees, Texas, and Kansas City. I mean, those are all challenging opponents. You're facing a lot of good pitchers. Obviously, Savali's not been very good, but you face Freddie Peralta, who he hasn't had a great season, but we know how talented he is. The Yankees have some good pitchers. Nate Eovaldi you're going to face against Texas. You're going to face Cole Reagans and probably Seth Lugo. It's a 4-game series with Kansas City. So, there's not going to be a lack of challenges. You still got the Dodgers. You still got Minnesota again. St. Louis is decent. Houston. I mean, you got one series with the White Sox, one with the Pirates.
White Sox, they're 5-5 against the Guardians.
They're red hot. They're trying to avoid being the worst team in the history of baseball.
I don't think it's going to work.
I don't think so. They need to win 11 more games. Can they do it? We shall see.
They've only got 6 weeks to win 11 games.
11 games. It should be enough time, but there you go. All right. Let me see if there's any more comments here. Let's see. Salesh says, I am a Cleveland fan living in India. Lived in Cleveland for 7 years, fell in love with everything Cleveland. You guys rock. Such a pleasure to have discussions every day about everything Cleveland sports. Cheers.
That's
From
awesome.
India, Zach.
That's really cool.
He's way further away than you are. We thought you were far away, but he's all the way in India.
Well, let us know if you can scout any future big leaguers.
That's right. There was a movie about 2 guys that were like cricket players in India, and I think they got signed to minor league contracts by the Pirates. I don't think either one made it to the majors. Corey says, is Noel a real prospect or just a flavor of the month? That's a good question. I mean, I think it's somewhere in between, maybe.
Yeah, I was talking to someone in a different front office who said, hey, this has been fun, but his chase rate is at like 51%, right? Which is just nerd talk that's very unsustainable.
But right now, don't you got to play him every day?
Yeah, maybe. You don't want to overexpose it's tough because I don't want to compare him to Oscar Gonzalez because they're different hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Part of Oscar Gonzalez's problem was he actually was really good at making contact, but he would chase everything. So if you're lunging at a pitch 6 feet out of the zone, but you're also really good at making contact, well, what are you going to do with that? You're going to ground it to second base or hit a soft pop-up. With Noel, it almost, in a way, helps him that he's got more swing and miss because if he's chasing, he's going to miss it instead of making weak contact. So nothing he hits is weak. If he makes contact, it's going 500 feet.
Right.
There's use for that. Even if it's not an everyday guy, because eventually pitchers will just not throw him anything in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got a guy who, there's a 5 to 10% chance that he's going to hit a home run in any given at bat.
Right.
At the worst, what a great pinch hitter option. And I think the way they've used him now is just make sure that either pitchers don't know enough about him yet, so they're not just feeding him, because you saw obviously he had the big nights the first 2 nights against the Cubs, and then in night 3, his first 3 at bats, he struck out swinging. So that's in there. It's always going to be part of his game.
No doubt.
But I think there's a place for hitters with that profile, as long as they can maybe make some adjustments and just not get overexposed.
That's the key. I mean, he's got the raw power, which they need. But can he, and it's going to be hard within, your rookie season to do this, but can he adjust, especially this offseason? Can he adjust and have better plate discipline? Because if he can, he could become a very dangerous hitter because the power is prolific from him.
How fun are those bat flips and the reactions he has? He knows it instantly.
Yeah. I mean, every time when he gets it, it's crushed. Let's see. Bubba says, great article by Zach this week in The Athletic. Yes, he's right. That was a really good article. I enjoyed reading that. What was the highlight of it for you?
Anytime I can just stand and watch Jose Ramirez or be offered $100,000 to buy his Cybertruck. It's the guy is just a treat.
Such a character. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Zach, enjoy your little mini vacation this weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Hopefully the Guardians continue their hot ways against the Brewers, and then a big trip to the Bronx. When are you flying to the Bronx? Monday?
I think Tuesday before the sun comes up. Ugh.
Oh, boy. Those are never fun. All right, man. Enjoy your time. Folks, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe. Please like. We'll talk to you on Monday. Where else but right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.